Last night I reminded the students to begin with how we do sutra study. We are in a course that is actually an academic course, reading the Pali Sutras. But from this year onwards, we have tended to concentrate more on the content. But already, even before I did that, some of our friends in Sri Lanka thought that we were only teaching the content and not teaching the language at all. It was totally a misconception. In fact, we have been spending too much time on the linguistic side actually in the past. And this year too, we don't neglect that. We never neglect that. So for the class, we fully analyze the grammar. Each and every word. I believe more than what is being done, perhaps even in the courses taught in the Buddhist countries. We give notes. If you look at our notes, we analyze each and every word, each and every particle, each and every phrase very carefully, giving the literal meaning, the grammatical relationships between the terms, the syntax, and then we offer a translation, we offer commentary notes, and so on. So from that aspect, we fulfill the expectation of an academic lecture, more than just providing you with academic or intellectual knowledge. And I have been trying to combine these two things. That is, teaching and learning in a systematic, you might even say a scholarly way, and for that we don't apologize. We are serious about it, put it this way. But this is one part of it. The other part is how to derive inspiration, how we can learn from the Buddha's teaching in the sutras as Dharma, not just as intellectual analysis, scholarly, academic lessons. So it has been very difficult to combine these two, but this is our ideal, right? So in the past, many students they were excited whenever I start a new course, and then after a couple of weeks, many of them quietly quit because they couldn't follow the Pali, and we didn't compromise. From last year, I was really grateful that the institute in Sri Lanka, the university in Sri Lanka, is very understanding and very kind in this respect, and allow me with my, of course, proposals and which have been duly passed at different levels, different committee levels in the university and so on. I have been allowed to design separate courses for the Pali and Sanskrit text readings. So now we have two separate papers, one concentrating on the Pali, grammar, the grammatical foundations, and likewise for Sanskrit grammatical foundation. There are two separate papers. In that course, we concentrate almost exclusively on grammatical analysis. I think those have been in our classes to understand what I'm talking about, and it seems to be doing well. And for that, we designed two textbooks. One for Sanskrit and recently another one for Pali. And exams are conducted accordingly as the content from the textbook as well as supplementary grammatical analysis materials that we supply in the classroom. And with these two, that is elementary Pali 1 and elementary Sanskrit 1 as foundational courses, the students are then allowed to come to the second paper, which is focused on now reading the suttas and no more on grammatical exercises and analysis. And that's what we did last night in the party class. But as I say, even in this second paper, it's not as imagined by some friends elsewhere. We don't simply just speak freely from the content. It's solidly based on the text. And even for the textual reading, the sutra reading, we analyze once again each and every word and phrase as it. And we give handouts. But now we try to save more time to talk more on the content. So that way, the intelligent students can derive double benefit. The student can continue to deepen their understanding of the Sanskrit language. Now this time, through reading the actual words of the Buddha in the suttas. And at the same time, from this year onwards, we hope to share the inspiration from the content. So now the emphasis now has shifted more to the content, but as I said, solidly based on the text. That's what we've been doing. So let me explain what we are trying to do. And that's very important at the beginning. We are at the beginning of things, and I'm glad that most students can understand this. We are opening new grounds, and this is not easy, but it seems to be very fruitful. So this year we selected a couple of important texts. We spent weeks analyzing the Satipatthana Sutta, the 4 Satipatthana in details according to the suttas, both the grammatical part as well as the content. But as I said, we spent a lot of time on the content, what inspiration we can derive from the Buddha. Now, and now we have come to another new sutta, that is another sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya on Bhaya Bhairava. Of course, the selection of this sutta sometimes also is determined by circumstances, like for instance the interest expressed by the students and so on. Our principle here in this Buddhist Central, our motto, our emphasis is the integration of Buddhist studies and Buddhist practice. Let me now say a few words on this. As my second point. Now, how do we go about it? Of course, as I said, we are opening new ground, we are learning. I'm humbling learning. It's a learning process for me also. How do we achieve that? How do we do that? You see? To begin with, let me quote, at least indirectly, not direct quote, what I have heard from other students in other places when I was teaching elsewhere. And somebody told me that they heard from a seminar that, for instance, a certain teacher, a certain monk, was saying that this training in the Zen monastery, is these are secondary and they are not so important, and unless you come out of it and then apply your training from the Zen hall, then only it becomes significantly important. So that I believe that if I didn't misunderstand this information, it seems to mean that all this learning, including learning from the sutras, intellectual studies, and also even meditation training in the Zen halls are just not quite the right thing. And they wouldn't be useful unless you apply them in your life. So there is this so-called theoretical part or preliminary part, and then the so-called application part. And these people want to emphasize the so-called application part. I think in doing so, I cannot share this kind of understanding. How can you say that the training, the Zen itself, unless it's applied in life, it's not important, or it's useless, or it's not fruitful? For Buddhism, the first thing about talking about application of Buddhism, we've got to realize that the Buddha's teachings are all meant for application. Whether we can apply them or not in our life, that depends on ourselves. Whether we have sincerity, whether we have faith, whether we have receptivity, whether we can tune into the, if you like, the experiential domains of the teachers who have expounded, including the Buddha himself, on the teachings. So we have to be equally responsible. This is one thing. I don't believe in separating Buddhism into theoretical Buddhism and applicative Buddhism. Application of Buddhism in this sense, therefore, in a sense, is a misnomer. A Buddhist teaching that is not meant for application is not a real Buddhist teaching. And secondly, there is a necessary relationship between the goal and the mean. We cannot divorce these two, especially in the domain of religion. We might try to be smart and think we are the one who are up to date, we apply the Buddha's teachings, and if you just read the sutras, if you go to the Zen hall and do the so-called traditional meditations, you are being outdated. We have to remind ourselves we cannot be too smart. The important thing, as I said, is to understand the relationship between the goal and the end. In fact, in religion, particularly I would say, in Buddhism, the two must be integrated. We can't say the mean is one thing, the end is the other thing. And you often see this kind of emphasis in some situations, for instance, like the application of, let's say, the method of mindfulness as stress reduction, or a meditation technique as a technique. So they take the technique, extricate the technique out of the total context. That's one point I have been complaining all along, and I don't want to spend more time on this today. Talking about, for instance, meditation in the Zen or the training, that training itself is an important spiritual experience. Whether you gain the spiritual experience or inspiration or not, that is your fault if you don't. It's up to you. You don't wait to train in meditation technique and then come out to the Zen and then apply it to life. In the very process of meditation, you should be able to experience tremendous Dharma joy, tremendous inspiration. You should be changing your consciousness. You should be on the path of transforming your whole personality. You should be experiencing conflict and struggles and going through this whole process in the very midst of your meditation training in the Zen hall. So don't try to be too modernistic and say, this Zen hall thing is something in the past or is too traditional. I uphold the values of all the traditional trainings. Although we don't have the opportunity to offer these kind of trainings, but I deeply appreciate other places where solid meditation trainings are offered. including the Zen or meditations. So the same thing, the principle, the same principle of integrating the means and the ends applies in the case of sutta study or sutra study. We don't just first study the theory, as it were, and then try to apply and then set up a course for application of Buddhist doctrines. As I said, for me, it's a misnomer. It's a wrong emphasis. The ideal, of course, I'm only talking about the ideal. As I said, I admit, I confess that there's a lot for me to learn how to achieve that ideal. But at least we must be sincere to put this message across to the masses today, more than any time, that we need to have a kind of new approach to sutra study. Do not think of it as just a mere intellectual exercise, academic study, a course that you take, for example, a classroom lectures on which you have to take notes and pass the exam. In the very midst of your listening to the content of the sutra, you should try to tune in. You should try to feel with your heart and not just think and analyze with your brain. Your whole being, you have to learn to involve your 5 skandhas. Your feelings, your emotions, your volitions, your consciousness, and you should learn how to be inspired. So learning sutra is certainly, it's definitely, no doubt, has an intellectual aspect. Even you might say a philosophical aspect, or aspect of philosophical investigation. But that aspect must not be mechanically divorced from the aspect of gaining inspiration. You're not there just to absorb more and more information to pass the exam or for whatever purpose. As you assess the information from the sutta, you should learn how I can feel from with my heart, how to bring out my feelings, how to get myself inspired, how to try to tune in experientially. Of course, that also involves an aspect of imagination. Imagination is an extremely important aspect of spiritual practice. How I can imagine myself, to be as if we're back to the time of the Buddha, to sit under the feet of the Buddha, and to learn from him humbly, instead of being over rational, over critical. Nowadays in the classroom, you go to the class and you teach a big class, and many of them are there for various reasons. You do have one part who are very ready to tune into you and listen to you and learn from you, but many nowadays, in the university situation, many try to be very smart, and before you finish talking, they are ready in their mind to question you, to show off their better knowledge, than the teacher. And so when you try to answer the questions, they were not actually listening to you. They were waiting for the chance for you. When you pause, they're going to ask another question. You see? So that certainly is not the sutra study ideal, not the sutra study approach. Of course, if you have intellectual questions, you have doubt, you should clear them, you should ask them. But the first and foremost condition for you to benefit, I'm talking, of course, I'm speaking, I hope, to practicing Buddhist. If you consider yourself a mere scholar, that may be a different matter. If you feel that you are Buddhist, or you are genuinely interested in deriving spiritual benefit from the Buddha's teaching, then you really have to decondition yourself and recondition yourself in such a way that you keep on training to tuning, to be inspired, to imagine, to share the domains of experiences, at least in the form of having a glimpse, even if we can't be on the true level as well of the experiences of the saint, of the holy, of the enlightened. But we can learn to glimpse into it, and that way we feel inspired by it, and try to imagine that in those ideal states, how we can transform ourselves, how we can transform our consciousness, how we can bring out our insight, develop our insight in the reality. And this is how we should learn sutra study. If we can do like that, at least I'm talking about an ideal, then we can integrate Buddhist studies and Buddhist practice. Because in the very midst of studying, you are practicing. You practice your faith, you practice your receptivity, you practice your sincerity, you practice your feeling of respect, and our feeling of inspiration. You allow yourself to be transformed. And ideally, you are almost into a state of meditation when you are learning the content of the teaching in the sutras. So this is what we hope to gradually, successively achieve. An ideal is always an ideal. It's difficult to achieve the full level of it. But I think we need to have this kind of understanding, sincerity, mindfulness to begin with. Then our effort in sutra study will be worthy. We are not here just to pass the exam. We are not just spending our time once a week for 3-4 hours with me. You're stuck with me for 3-4 hours in the classroom, just to please me or to please the institution. No. In the classroom, seated there, if you can do like this, I believe that you are being benefited spiritually. You are practicing the Dharma. So in that way you integrate Buddhist studies and Buddhist practice. That is our motto, that's our humble aspiration of this little Buddha-Dharma Center of Hong Kong. So from especially this year onwards, we try to bring out this awareness. And we believe that we have achieved a little bit at the initial stage. Let's hope to achieve more. So these are important, you might say, preliminary remarks on the whole approach of Buddhist study that's needed now. To summarize, don't think of it as a mere intellectual exercise. Don't think of it as a mere kind of a course requirement. At the same time, do not think that you acquire only the theoretical side and then later on only you can apply it. In the very midst of it, you should try to apply it, and you feel inspired enough, you feel motivated enough, then you know how can I go about applying in my life what I've learned in the classroom. You don't have to be told. You don't have to be scolded. It's like, I often give the example of a mother. If the mother truly has love for her only child, the unconditional love, then she knows how to go about looking after the child's welfare. She doesn't have to be told. She doesn't have to be required by the law, by the police, or by the community. She will even, in the Buddhist teaching, she will even risk her own life for her only child. So likewise, if we are inspired enough, if we are motivated enough through sutra study, if we feel enough as we read the sutras, not just understand enough intellectually or grammatically or linguistically, then we naturally want to, in a very spontaneous way, we want to see how I can apply it. I may not be able to apply perfectly, fully, but I will feel that I like to do that, I like to try that. And if everybody can do like this, then Buddhism becomes always relevant in different periods of time. And not just only to the students of a academic course. You don't need another thing, another department of application of Buddhism. So I had to repeatedly remind our students along these lines